So just wanted to provide a little bit of an overview as we get started. It's so important for us to have broad participation from you in this process, and this is a great start. So feel free to engage friends and neighbors and to let us know if you come up with some new techniques for reaching out to folks. We have a series of 5 engagement series, we're calling them, and within each one, we're having a community meeting. So the best way to be engaged is to kind of keep track of those different dates, and we'll do our best to help you in that endeavor and let you know when you can weigh in on the plan. We were pretty purposeful about how we developed this process. We know that you're an engaged community that values education, values creativity, values knowledge, and we wanted to have a plan that will be most useful to you. And so we're trying to have a process and an end product that's useful and usable to both professionals as well as citizens. We know that's critical for implementation of this plan. So always open to ideas that will help us in that endeavor. So I'll turn to our consultant team. We are fortunate to have a team for this size of a project to help us with technical and outreach. So our team is led by Clarion Associates, and Darcy White is our project manager. She's supported by Charlie Brennan. And we also have a hazard mitigation team, and that's led by Julie Baxter. So I'm going to turn it over to Darcy. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Welcome, everyone, and thanks again for being here. We're really excited to be getting started, and we've had a chance to meet with a number of you over the last couple of days, so we appreciate you coming back for more. And thank you especially for those of you who haven't been involved so far and are just getting started in the process. So wanted to take a few minutes this evening. I'm going to give you a little bit of context on kind of what our process is about. Mary Nicoletta is going to help us out talking a little about some of the context, and then we'll get into a little bit more information, and then we're really going to spend the bulk of the time having you help us out, working in some groups and giving us some information, and then Charlie will talk a little bit more about that. So we'll get a chance to work on your own and then kind of come back as a group and talk about some of what you've learned. So we will get you out of here on time. But we'll try to get this portion of the process over here pretty quick and dive into the feedback portion. So a couple quick things about the process. This is a very innovative project that the city has decided to take on. The concept of integrating both your hazard mitigation plan and your community master plan as a process as well as the end product is really a great opportunity. It's a very innovative approach. Not a lot of communities have done this, so this is something that's really neat, and we think will result in a stronger product. We'll talk a little bit about what each of those components are in a moment here. The other pieces that feed into this are that there is a lot of work that has been done in Manitou over the past few years that we have to build on through this process. So we'll touch on that as well. So a community master plan really is the long-range plan for the community. This helps the community determine where and how you want to grow. So there's a physical component to that, thinking about land use and transportation, infrastructure, some of those key components we need that make the community tick. But it also deals with things like economic development, historic preservation, social issues, housing, service needs, all of those things. So it really is a true comprehensive plan in terms of the range of issues that it touches on. So very important document, and this is really a policy guide for the city and the community. It's not a regulatory document, but it sets the foundation for the implementation steps that the city and others will take to help achieve the community's vision. So this informs the zoning code, for example, your historic guidelines, and different things that happen in the community to implement key ideas that you want to achieve. Julie's going to give us just a quick overview of kind of the role of the hazard mitigation plan, and we'll keep going.
Great, so hazard mitigation, what that means is we're going to look at all of the natural hazards that can happen here, so wildfire, flooding, landslides, and what are the impacts of those hazards on your community assets. So similar to that, the list of elements that we're going to be looking at in the master plan, so housing and transportation and infrastructure, your economy, what are the impacts and the risks related to those hazards, and thinking through making some long-term decisions on projects and actions that you can do to reduce those risks, not only to the existing structures and infrastructure here, but also thinking about as you do future development and make decisions, how do we be more resilient and reduce risk in the future. And you have participated in the El Paso County mitigation plan in the past, and it tends to be a little bit of a too general. I think with this planning process, we're really going to focus on the kind of unique vulnerabilities and risks here in Manitou and your priorities on how you want to address those risks.
Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Nicoletta. She's going to talk a little bit about kind of where we're starting from.
Okay, so I'm having flashbacks right now because I'm about to talk about Manitou Springs Forward, and this looks pretty similar to Manitou Springs Forward, right? So we have our focus groups, and now we're having this is like a work day for those of you who are a part of it. So thank you for being here. Those of you who have done focus groups already this week and last week, and who have been a part of so many with post and everything we've got going on, I appreciate you still coming out. And then like folks like Tom, who I just met, who are new to this whole system, it's wonderful seeing the new faces too. So I'm just going to talk about the foundation for Plan Manitou. And the beautiful thing about this, not only our planning department with Wade and Karen, but with Clarion, they really have a great deal of respect for the Manitou Springs Forward Vision and Planning Guide, for all the work that we've put into it, and the value and the vision statements and all of that. So really, I'm not going to say a ton, but we just wanted to highlight a few things that, that was a citizen-led initiative. It was eventually adopted by City Council. We've used it. We used it to hire our city planner and our city administrator. It's a plan that we use with the collaborative, what individuals can use, groups can use, anything. So, and it's based in vision statements. I guess you could click whenever. So 10 vision areas, as you can see, and I guess the most important thing really that I want to say is that we're building on that. And Darcy said it really well the other day, that it's just we're building on that. Nothing's going to be lost from that vision plan. And I guess I just applaud you all for being part of that in the first place. So it's just going to be built upon, and it's going to be great. That's it.
Thank you, Mayor. So a couple other things I wanted to mention. In addition to the vision plan, there's some recent work that's also been done on the post plan. That draft plan is going to be released in April of this year. A number of you have been involved in that. So that's another opportunity we have to draw from the work that's been done and start to pull all the pieces together in this broader project. This gives you a flavor of how much intellectual capacity has really been poured into this community in terms of all the work that's been done. So we will be tapping into the many, many resources that are out there in all of those different elements of the community master plan. So just want to reassure folks that we're aware of this work. If there are other things you think we need to be aware of, we're all ears. We're in the information gathering phase right now, but a lot to work with. And so we'll be working to build on that as we go forward. So I want to talk a little bit about how this plan is different. We've had this question in several of our focus groups, what is different about this plan? Why do we need to do this? And the community master plan really takes the concept of the vision that was established in Manitou Springs Forward and starts to add another level of detail, another tier of strategic focus to some of those initiative areas. And so this is really a chance to try to work together as a community to talk about priorities, potential conflicts. We may have a visionary here that really doesn't support our vision over here. So we need to have those conversations and work collectively to talk about where you want to go as a community, what those specific opportunities are. So a couple things we'll be doing to help do that. We'll be digging into some data and trends to talk about what some of the information is available that we can provide to you to help inform those decisions as we go into the process. So the next round of meetings in April, we'll have maps, we'll have data, lots of different things to think about when we start talking in more detail about what specific goals and strategies you may want to pursue going forward. A key part of this process will be an implementation strategy and a monitoring plan. So not just how will we move forward, who's going to be involved, what resources do we have to tap into to help us with that, and then how do we know if we're making progress. So 3 years from now, when the plan has been adopted, it's been underway, looking back, what's been accomplished, are we going in the direction that we hoped we would go? So key component of the comprehensive plan, community master plan, will be an extra layer of detail in the land use area. You don't currently have a formal future land use plan, and that's something that is required for communities to have in their master plan. So that's something that we will be building through this process based on input from you. That starts with the foundation of what's out there today. We'll look at opportunities for about a year from now. The bulk of the work is going to happen between now and the end of this year. So we'll be having another 4 meetings between now and December. And each step of the process, we will bring back some additional information, kind of bring back to you a synthesis of what we've heard in terms of that series of meetings. It's going to be an iterative process with the community. So we will build the plan over that period of time and be sharing with you new information, different information each time we see you to help ultimately be rolled up into that draft plan for your consideration. So we do have a number of formal groups in the process that we'll be meeting with each time. So we'll be doing these community meetings, but we also have a citizens advisory committee, a 12-member group. We met with them this afternoon. Broad representation from the community, and they're really going to help us dig into the details of draft documents and kind of help provide that perspective to us to help understand and balance the different things that we're hearing from different groups in the community. We also have a hazard mitigation planning team, who's really a more technical group, regional focus as well as state and federal representation. So a lot of different agency representation in terms of that group. So those groups will be working in parallel with the community on these different things. We will also be meeting with Planning Commission and City Council. We met with Planning Commission last night. We will be doing that in a similar fashion each time we come. We'll do a couple of special updates with City Council between those meetings. So I think one in May and another one in October. So we'll be trying to keep everybody informed and involved in this process as we go through to make sure we're moving in the right direction. So Karen handed out at the beginning, if you're, we know that everybody's schedules fill up really quickly, so we wanted to just nail down the dates now. So we have those dates already scheduled. You can get them on your calendar if you're interested in coming back. So next one will be in April 21st, and then we'll be back in June, and we'll kind of start diving into some of the more specifics of where we want to go at that point. So if you're not able to make one of these meetings and you're interested in participating, over the next year, we do have a dedicated project website, planmanitou.com, and we will be having input opportunities online in between the meetings that kind of follow the same information that's presented. So we'll talk about issues and opportunities tonight. We'll have a survey form on the website next week where people can provide that input. So we'll try to extend those opportunities throughout the process. So always able to participate that way. And we'd love to hear from you and have you participate in any way that you're able. So with that, I would ask if there are any questions about the process or any of that piece. We're gonna shift gears and talk a little bit about what we want to hear from you tonight, but any questions before we do that? Okay, and feel free to grab myself or Julie or Karen or Wade tonight. You know, if you do have questions and you want to speak to any of us, we can do that as we get started in our groups as well. So I'm actually going to turn it over to Charlie, and he's going to get us oriented with kind of what we're up to tonight.
All right, so our activity for tonight is really designed to help have you guys help us to identify what are the most important issues and opportunities that are facing the community and things that we should be sure to consider as we move forward in the process. Particularly in terms of when we come back to you all with our community profile and the data that we've collected in the interim, sort of what issues or topics that we should focus on, sort of help provide you with the information as a community and as a city government that you need to sort of make the decisions to help you address some of these issues. And we've divided them into these different topic groups just to try to, you know, get a wide range of sort of representation of these issues and opportunities, but you can feel free to just respond to the ones that are most of interest to you, so don't feel like you need to go over each one. And then so just in terms of, you know, more specifically in terms of issues and opportunities, what are we sort of looking for? These can be topics, these can be issues, these can be trends that either are affecting the community now or that you feel will be important for us to consider in the future. You know, this is a long-term planning document, so we're really trying to at least anticipate some of the issues that we might run into in the next 10 to 20 years that will be important for the community to have a base, sort of a policy guide to address as these issues may arise. At the same time, we want to be sure that we include sort of the strengths, the assets, the opportunities that exist in the community in the plan and consider those as we think about how we might address some of these issues that arise from this portion of the process. At the same time, we're also looking for a little input from you all in terms of, you know, when we talk about sustainability and resiliency, what do we mean? I mean, these are both really broad topics, especially in terms of resiliency. It's sort of still in its infancy in terms of, you know, thinking about what it means. Commonly, just as sustainability, it's divided into sort of, you know, the social, the economic, and the environmental aspects of it. And so we're really looking for you guys, at least some direction in terms of, you know, when we talk about these terms in the plans and in the policies, you know, what aspects of them would be important to be represented. And so we're going to take the next 15 minutes to sort of complete the worksheets that are at your tables. If you don't have a copy, please raise your hand and I will be sure to bring you one. It's the one that's titled Issues and Opportunities, and it's got, as you flip through it, a series of red boxes. And so we're going to take the first 15 minutes to sort of complete this on our own. Feel free, you know, talk amongst yourselves if you would like. And again, you know, feel free to just respond to the ones that you feel like you have stuff to respond to. And these don't necessarily need to be topics as well. They can be questions that you're hoping that we might help you to answer in these different topic areas moving forward. And then after that, we'll take the next 15 minutes to sort of discuss amongst our groups, just to sort of see what each person came up with, where we share common ground, and where there might be some differences. And then after that, we'll go around to all the groups and sort of give each person an opportunity to report out sort of what they discussed in their small groups, so that the whole group, the entire group that's assembled here tonight, can sort of get a sense of, you know, what we've come up with.
First one was land use, and we talked about one of the issues being the east and the west ends needing to be developed. Some of the opportunities that we found were on the east end, implementing the implementation of the shuttles, and on the west end, we were looking at like park beautification, and then also we talked about protecting the character and the integrity of the individual neighborhoods that are within Manitou, and then building resiliency of the infrastructure. with the housing, we talked about affordable housing and vacation housing, and trying to keep a balanced mix. And then kind of got through economic development, where we discussed bringing in more businesses, such as corporate businesses, into Manitou, which would allow for, you know, growth of its residents, and also allow its residents to stay and not only work in Manitou, but also put their finances back into the community.
Thanks, Misty.
One of the things that we really noticed was that these issues are not, even though they're 10 different issues or so that we were talking about, is that they're all kind of interrelated a lot too. So like you can't talk about issues with like the private security that was downtown and the police possibly not working together so well last year without the issues of going into our housing, some of these older, larger buildings being broken up into a lot of different units. That goes into historic preservation, into code enforcement, and issues with how the wiring and stuff in some of these buildings may be hazardous. Help me out, guys. What else do we have? Oh yeah, and some opportunities too. After the floods, we had a CERT team that was started in Manitou as the Community Emergency Response Team. I can talk, it's okay. And that was started up kind of as a volunteer management thing, but also with the flood of volunteers after the flood that came in to help manage them and not having them show up in like shorts and flip-flops and getting themselves hurt in a town that's already hurting from a disaster. And so that had started up as kind of that, and as a way for the community to help local, and in this case for a major event, having county sheriff and other agencies that are coming in, sometimes even National Guard from like our experience in the Waldo Canyon fire up in the Rock Rimmon area when we were up there, being able to help them out, make sure your own neighborhood is safe, and then being able to assist the law enforcement or emergency first responders in any way possible after that. And so that had started up, but is kind of languished, and we really think that kind of revitalizing it, getting it started up again, because it really hasn't been much done in about 18 months or so, to have that resource available, because we haven't had a disaster in a while, which is great, but we need to be prepared for one, just in case. Anything else you guys wanted us to talk about? That's it. All right, there we go.
I think we talked a lot about many of those things as well, but I think we also highlighted the many wonderful and unique things about Manitou, but pointed out how many of them there are and how disjointed they are, and are now brainstorming ways to unite all those organizations under one bigger, more powerful, more communicative, more tech-savvy umbrella, so that everyone has an opportunity to know what's going on, and people outside of this community will know what we have to offer. We also talked about the concept of the historic district, which we love. We asked the question, just because it's historic, does it mean it has value? And how can we revitalize some of our properties when we have absentee landlords, or we have buildings that look like they should be condemned, but they're in court cases and cannot be used, and they're at the beautiful, or should be beautiful, west entrance. Those were some of the things we talked about, is just really beginning to highlight what we have and figure out how to revitalize it and communicate it.
No. Something? I'm just going to unite the, unique character, maintain our... Maintain
our unique character and really communicate that. I think there's some things here in town that some of us know nothing about. Ken Geray at the Manny Awards mentioned we have 100 and plus wonderful organizations. I don't know what they all are. And I know we have the Creative District coming. I wish, is Natalie here? I wish Natalie was here to update us on that. I see that as a possible umbrella for the many arts organizations. Rocky mentioned trying to increase our arts opportunities. We have a lot of visual arts and galleries, and we have great music events, but we don't have enough performing halls or areas. We could use more classical music. That's a great opportunity to partner with the schools and some of the other wonderful musical opportunities in the region.
One quick thing, but I will qualify my statement. My name is Lee Mackey. I work for Graccio Housing, and we're predominantly in Colorado Springs. There's recently been more discussion about affordable housing in this community, and I just want to encourage that because housing is so critical to the people that you have here and the people that you want to bring here. And the conversations we've had so far, to the credit of the people in your community, has been to provide affordable housing, but also maintain your culture, such as providing affordable housing for artists and things like that. So just a word of encouragement and an offer of help, however we can help along the way. Sorry.
I have two I need to know. Maybe you all know the answer to this. Well, one is an infrastructure concern I have specifically around electricity. The electricians I know who work and live here in Manitou are very concerned that we do not have enough electricity. I have a historic building. I am maxed out on electricity. I would have to pay $100,000 plus to increase the electricity for my building, and I don't have that money. And it's a citywide issue, I think, and I'd like to know more about that. The other thing is 21st century technology. We have free Wi-Fi, I think, here, but I can't access it here on my phone. Not here at City Hall, but I thought we did.
In City Hall.
We do not, okay. And I have asked many times, where are we with live streaming these meetings, city council and other meetings, so people who can't get here but want to know could perhaps watch from home or other venues.
Please correct me, add if I leave something out. One of the key things, I want to underscore what Rocky said. Manitou's character, its unique character, is something that is not only an opportunity, but something we need to protect. We talked about the opportunities with the arts and with health and well-being. And you can see what the Mineral Springs Foundation has done over the years. You can now enjoy Sunwater Spa. I mean, this is a place where the possibilities are unlimited. I'm thinking of Concrete Couch, of course, and our famous neighbors right here. Okay, so we talked about expanding the improvements to Fountain Creek, perhaps from City Hall East, combining flood mitigation with a creek walk, certainly supporting implementing the parks, trails, and open space planning that has already been done, and we'll have a finished plan here soon, right?
June.
There was a desire to fix City Hall, this room right here, to protect this historic structure. Certainly the historic assets of Manitou Springs are a big deal, and an opportunity. We talked about refining the zoning codes and enforcing the codes that we have. And we talked about the opportunity to make the planning process within our zoning framework more flexible because there's not a lot of space which has not been developed and is easy to develop tomorrow or right now, because that would have already been done. So it really requires some flexibility on the part of the city to make those projects happen. We talked about improving the housing stock across the board, not just affordable housing. We talked about the issue of dangerous buildings along the creek. Let's see. A lack of sort of medium-sized, medium-priced homes in Manitou. Opportunity with housing is, the demand is here. People want to live in Manitou. The opportunity is to allow more infilling or more improvement of existing housing stock. Let's see. Economic development. We like a small corner store. At present, the sense is that there is not an economic development plan per se, and that maybe that should be addressed. Susan, more active IRA? No.
Urban Renewal Authority.
Urban Renewal Authority. Lack of diversity of businesses, lack of streetscaping, or downtown has had its improvement plan, but that could be expanded to other parts of Manitou. A lack of quality motels, I think that's more, we certainly have some quality motels, but we have some motels that are maybe not such high quality. Let's see, publicize our openness to economic development. We talked about arts and health and well-being. Our name, Manitou, means something. It has an increasing exposure and a very positive connotation across the region. Let's see. Maybe that's enough.
That's impressive.
Okay.
As far as land use goes, you brought up the issue of mixed use and encouraging mixed use in the community. The fact is that there is limited land for development, and that restrains anything that we do and also increases the cost of anything we do. Consistent policy for investors, that was brought up, that it's very difficult for investors to invest here when the requirements, the regulations are changing every couple of years. And the question of came up with what to do with the Tahini Fez over here, and one party would like to see a park there, and of course there's the issue of using it for parking, which is probably going to win out the way things are. On the issue of housing, there were kind of two sides that we took a look at, and one side was that we have to, basically it comes down to providing affordable housing to people that work in Manitou, and we have to find some way to provide that. The difficulties with that, of course, are that we've been very successful in our gentrification of Manitou. Prices have gone up, rents have gone up. And the other side of that point of view is that it's none of our business. That we have been this successful, and there's nothing you can do without a heavy hand to create affordable housing in Manitou. And we have this massive reservoir of housing to the east of us to pick up that, carry that weight for us. And that's about as far as we got as a group.
I think you guys have touched upon a lot of the things that we have. I think we might have a little bit different perspective or viewpoint on some of this. Land use in the built environment, Fountain Creek, we really feel should be still valued as the natural aesthetic that it is. It is one of the most important things that this community has. And with that, with keeping it in a natural state, does have some risk, as we know. We've seen the floods that came through. Fortunately, we're not the big floods, though. When the 100-year flood comes through, all bets are off. And I think one thing that we need to think about as a community is how do we want Manitou Springs to look like in the future? That photograph over there is a beautiful example of how this town used to look like. You know, there was construction, most of the older homes were built up and out of the floodplain. There was very little construction, down near the creek, and now we've done that. So how do we view that? One of the issues that we came up with as well was that the fact that our police, fire department, and city hall are all in the floodplain. That is something that I think our community really needs to look at very seriously and move it out. Keep this building though. It's a beautiful building, right? We can keep the historic nature, but we'll move our emergency services out of the floodplain. A couple other things that we had, let's see. The development of Higginbotham Flats. I know that there's some ideas about what's going to be happening up in there, but I think it's a good discussion to have within the community, how we want to see that evolved and developed. People already talked about the lack of low-income housing. That's definitely important to us as well. We talked about establishing more year-round businesses in Manitou Springs. You know, we're very dependent on summer tourism. How do we get that to overflow, more evenly into the winter months? And transportation, we have a lot of traffic issues here. It's always fun to try to get through Manitou on a summer's day. I'm sarcastic. But highlighting the west exit. Many people who come to Manitou have no idea you can actually leave Manitou through the western side. I feel like you have to go back to the eastern side. So something like that, better communication there going through. And what else did I need? Is that good? All right.
There's lots more.
We did think that housing is one of the top issues that we face here. And we would like to see Manitou work toward more affordable housing and moderately priced housing as well, for the kind of people that we want to attract to town. We would like to see incentivizing developed for such things as green retrofitting of existing rental properties, for incentives for building smaller energy efficient housing with lower taxes and construction fees for the smaller homes. And also, as Priscilla pointed out, retrofitting our historic buildings in a way that is not such a burden on their owners. We talked a little bit about the relationship between the schools and the city. As Lori pointed out, we have a significant number of students in our schools that are classified as homeless. And the schools have to provide services for these students. But from a community point of view, this places a huge burden on the school district. How can we help them with that? Shouldn't we be helping them with that? That's one value that we think should be given some consideration. And finally, we mentioned parking. We didn't get into a discussion of it, but as far as economic development is concerned, we would like to find a way to become not so dependent on tourism for everything. We would like to see more services and stores and shopping opportunities for us residents. And finally, we think that we do a lot for kids in this community, but nothing for seniors. And we think that's something that should be looked at, given some attention.
Yeah. We're going to be transcribing all the information we've been gathering over the last couple of days. We'll put together a consolidated issues and opportunities summary that kind of reflects the whole range of things that we've heard, so you'll have that. And then in terms of next steps, we will be back, as I mentioned earlier, next community meeting is going to be April 21st, so we really hope you'll be able to join us. We'll be talking about some of the specific trends and data behind a lot of these issues. So if we're talking about housing, how much affordable housing do we actually have? How many units do we have? What is our capacity? So trying to get into some of the meat of the discussion about these different topics. So definitely hope you'll stay engaged in the process and encourage others to get involved as well. This is a great turnout tonight, and we hope we can kind of build that as we get further into the process here as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Karen for the last word, but thank you again, and we really appreciate your time.
Just a couple more things. We have a nice trifold of the Vision Forward document on the tables and at the front table, and it'd be great if you can kind of familiarize yourself with that document since that's where we'll be starting from. Also, just want to remind you about our website, planmanitou.com. We're putting a number of different educational pieces up there, and can't think of anything else except to thank you all very much for your participation tonight. Good night.